Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the Out of Spec podcast. Hope you are having a great day so far. Today, we are talking about Kia's recent announcement of the EV3 as an actual product. We've heard about this as a concept, of course, but this will be a product in the plan is that Europe and Asia will have it in 2024 and then North America in 2025. So this is incoming. Of course, everyone is calling it a cute and affordable EV option. And if you know anything about me, you know that I'm a fan of cute and affordable, especially when it comes to EVs. I have Max here today to dive into all the details. So let's plug in. This episode is made possible by the support we get from Fort Collins Kia. If you are in the market for any electric Kia, not only do they never add market adjustments, they will deliver your car to you anywhere in the 48 contiguous states for out-of-spec viewers. More information in the link in the show notes. Okay, Max, we've got a starting price target of $30,000, a goal of over 300 miles with the larger battery pack for the Kia EV3, which will probably be the more expensive option. But this is kind of exciting because it is really introduced as this is going to compete amongst the EV options on the road, and it's cute and affordable. I mean, I love the sound of that. What do you think?
Yeah, it's hard to pass up, and it's a really hot market segment right now, increasingly so in the US, already in Europe, where lots of these are for sale. So in the US, for context, we're just starting to get for sale the Volvo EX30, the Chevy Equinox EV, after years of promising that, also in that $30,000 price range, also promising, in some cases, close to 300 miles of range or slightly over, which is, that's exactly what the consumer wants. And a lot of people want SUVs that lifted ride height, but they don't need it to be that big. Maybe they live in cities. These vehicles are getting really popular. So this joins Kia's lineup with the Kia Niro, which longtime Kia stands will be familiar with. The Niro they sell as a hybrid, a plug-in hybrid, and an electric car. And if we actually get nerdy and look at the specs of this EV3, it seems to share a lot of Niro technology, but it's still based off their next generation eGMP architecture. But it doesn't have, for the EV nerds out there, the fancy 800-volt fast charging. So this is not a bleeding edge EV, but it's Kia attempting to basically go into a hot market segment with a very competitive offering, lots of range, lots of efficiency, I presume, and some interesting, just design language. Their futuristic look is certainly polarizing. I know some people really don't like it, some people do. But yeah, what do you think, Francie?
I definitely think that they have an interesting approach that we've been seeing from Hyundai Kia, which has been, from what I can tell, pretty welcome in the market so far. I was looking at the sales from last year, the EV6, which is that, mid-size crossover comparable to the Model Y, like you were saying. Over 18,000 were sold in the US in 2023. The EV9, the three-row SUV, came out later last year. They sold over 1,000 after that came out. It's the bigger one, size of a Rivian R1S. But as you can see, if you're tuning in on YouTube, we're getting the look at the EV3 too. And this is kind of, this different approach to design than we have seen from automakers. It's not totally different, but there are some choices that do make it distinct. And then, of course, the Kia Niro that's been out for a while. Like you said, it's been a plug-in hybrid EV, a hybrid, and now an EV. And they had over 10,000 sold in 2023 in the US. These are all US numbers last year in 2023. And as of quarter one, of this year, 2024, Kia has over 5% of the total share of EV sales. So that's pretty cool. I mean, 5% is something. I'm sure they want more, but they're on the board.
So it really has to be affordable in some respect. I don't know if it will really start at like 30 grand on the dot, but for some context here, its higher end sibling, the EV6, which is a bit larger, a bit sportier, much faster, and has much faster charging too, that starts at $42,500 right now in the US. So I would hope to see this start at least as low as 35 grand, or at most as high as 35 grand, ideally lower than that. And they're offering two battery sizes. So there's a 58 kilowatt hour battery and an 81 kilowatt hour larger pack. That larger battery, of course, is the one they're advertising with over 300 miles of range. Interestingly, I don't think there's an all-wheel drive option. It looks like it's just front-wheel drive, a lot like the Niro, with 201 horsepower or a 150 kilowatt motor in the front, identical specs to the very newest Niro. So that's interesting right there, as well as, like I
Mhm.
mentioned, the slower charging. So for the nerds out there, 128 kilowatt peak speed, they're saying 10 to 80% in 31 minutes, as opposed to, I think, 18 minutes on the EV6 and the current Hyundai Ioniq 5.
Hmm. Okay. I mean, I know that people really do target the fast charging. I don't want to be stuck at a charger for a long time. What do you think about this approach of not getting that fast charging stat? Is it just really key to keeping the price down?
Perhaps, I'm not an electrical engineer, but I imagine the 800-volt system architecture, or near 800
Yeah.
volt, 800-volt class is what they call it, does cost a little bit. That said, they've already developed it. They've already put in other vehicles. So this also could just potentially be artificial product segmentation. They don't want to cannibalize sales. I don't know. I could believe either one. I mean, those higher voltage components certainly are more expensive. So if they are sharing some tech from Nero, I'm sure that helps drive costs down. Now, for context, I think the Nero EV starts at around 41 grand, which I think is also too expensive. It's sitting on the toes of EV6, which is a better vehicle probably for most people. But the EV3, in that case, I think really does have to be under 40 grand. Ideally, like I think Francie's sweet spot would be 40 grand for the large battery that they're advertising with over 300 miles of range. I think the biggest miss here, though, is unless I'm, reading the early press releases wrong, having no all-wheel drive option, especially with the US
Hmm.
market. This is a big miss in my view, because we consider a vehicle like its sister vehicle within Hyundai Motor Group, the Hyundai Kona EV, right? That also is limited to front wheel drive. And I can just tell you for a fact, my girlfriend really wanted to buy a Kona EV, but her parents wouldn't let her because they wanted her to be safe. So they insisted she have all wheel drive, and so she had to get the Kona standard with the 1.6 turbo. And she loved that car. She now drives a Chevy Bolt, which is an EV, and she's learned herself that all-wheel drive, not that important for her. She can just put on winter tires, but all-wheel drive's a
Sure.
big marketing distinction for a lot of folks. It can be important, and it's a really nice box to check. So this not having that option when the Volvo EX30, the Chevy Equinox EV, and basically everything else in its class will have that option, I think is a big miss.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I am finding, I searched for this and I found from Kelly Blue Book, they did say every EV3 will be front wheel drive with one electric motor on the front axle and none on the rear. So I do think that all wheel drive is just a great option. I think it's pretty key in what I buy, just considering that you can do more with it and all the safety features and the abilities that adds to your vehicle. So maybe it is more of the commuter lifestyle. You're getting around, you're maybe not in snow all of the time, something like that. We'll have to see. They also mentioned that they'll be bringing vehicle to load charging to the compact EV SUV segment. So that will be interesting to see. I think some automakers have talked about this. Some have done it so far where they're talking more about vehicle to grid. So I think this is something that they sprinkle in with every kind of product launch amongst the EV automakers, but haven't totally seen it take off in the market yet, I'll say. So
Yeah,
what do you think
Kia's
about?
good at branding
Go
those
ahead.
technologies like vehicle to load. They offer it in a lot of their vehicles. That's basically the bidirectional thing where you could plug in a blender or a bouncy castle inflator to your electric car. I don't know how many people actually do that, but that's a big thing they make, along with like standard, really good driving assistance. Their highway driving assist 2 is, I think, one of the best systems of its kind on the market for making long road trips really easy. I assume this will have that. They just said it will have autonomous driving assistance systems. I'd hope they give it the full suite, because the way it currently works is essentially all their vehicles get it. I think maybe for the Nero you have to get like one up from the base trim, but I think it'd be a really smart option to have that as a base here. But sorry, I interrupted you, Francie. Where were you going?
No, no, I don't even know where I was going, but I am thinking about North American Charging Standard, which I wonder if they would
Yeah.
call it that, or J3400, the SAE standard. Basically, they were one of the kind of first to come out with an official announcement of when they were doing it. They had those photos of, well, that was Hyundai, of charging at EV at Tesla superchargers. I don't see anything in the announcement about that. Do you know anything?
Haven't heard anything, and I would assume the plan is, given that this is launching in 2024 in European markets and sometime in 2025 in North America, probably not including it. I'm sure the next model year would have it, but I see this comment from people on every new EV, right? Will it have NACS or J3400? And I just have to tell people no. Like, these
Probably not.
decisions. Yeah, because basically, from everything I understand, the automakers learned about the Tesla partnerships not long before we did. And vehicle development takes time, especially changing the charging inlet. Sure, it's not rocket science, but it actually does change a lot of the wiring, a lot of the configuration. And so any vehicle that wasn't, that has a lead time of more than 2 years, we're not going to see NACS. And I don't think that should be a deal breaker to most people. I understand the fear that my vehicle will be obsolete, but there are so many EVs on the market with us in the US, a CCS Type 1 inlet for fast charging. And there are adapters, and I know there's a shortage of them right now, but they will be made en masse. And so I understand the reluctance, but ultimately, let's face it, if you're buying a new electric vehicle, you're probably not the kind of person who keeps a vehicle for much longer than, let's say, 5 or 6 years, which even that is a long time for the average new American car buyer. I know we have some frugal folks who keep cars much longer. That's great. You're probably not buying new cars. So if you're buying a new car, your car in 5 years probably will have NACS. So I would just say, let's not be so anxious about NACS. I know it would be nice to have, but I'm very skeptical this will have it. If they had something to announce, I think would have done it.
I think so too. I am just pulling up when they originally announced their announcement to adopt the J3400 standard, and they said starting from Q4 of 2024, at the end of this year, Kia plans to build the North American charging standard port into new electric vehicles sold in the US, Canada, and Mexico to enable EV owners, blah, 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 to use the chargers, etc. But yeah, I guess it really depends when these are being built and then when they get into the market. And also if this has changed, along the way. We don't always know what's going on behind the scenes. But yeah, adapters will come into play. People will have adapters someday, and there's still plenty of CCS chargers out there, even though some people are arguing to stop building them, to stop installing them. That's another podcast that we will talk about. So I think that this is a cool option to come onto the market. Kia is differentiating what they have. They're pulling from what they know, and hopefully it will be affordable. Perhaps they missed it with the, not all-wheel drive option, but we'll just have to see. We don't have a pricing on this, right? We know what they're targeting, so we'll just have to wait for more details for what is actually coming out on the market. So still some questions. I'd be interested to know what our listeners have questions about. So please write them in the comments, and we can see if we can find any answers when we have the next update. Anything else you want to say about the Kia EV3 Maximilian?
I'll just say I personally think the design is cool. I'm all here for that. I think they call it the opposites united design.
Interesting.
Ethos they have going on. It's cool. It's angular. The two tones are fun. There's fun colors. I think if there's something to commend Kia for, there's several things actually, but if there's one thing I could pick to commend them for, it's releasing really bold, interesting designs in this automotive market. I mean, short of like Tesla Cybertruck, which gets a lot of attention, I can't think of that many vehicles, Francie, in the last 5 years that have really designs that are that nice. And Kia's EVs, regardless of whether you like them or not, are definitely pushing forward the boundaries of design in lots of ways. So I think that's lots of fun, and I'm sure that will add some premium flair to this. That said, I agree with you. Big miss on them not offering all-wheel drive. Perhaps that will change between now and 2025, and they'll explore adding an all-wheel drive trim, because with an electric car, having all-wheel drive is not, I'm not a vehicle engineer, but I understand it's easier in most cases than with a gas car. So I hope they find a way to package or sell a trim with all-wheel drive. And I also hope that the price really is as low as promised. I think starting around low 30 grand would be great. One question people also might have, will this get the US tax credit? Like with the North American charging standard, I've got no idea for you right now. I can tell you if they build it in Korea, probably not. But the upside of that is that at least won't have that big Chinese tariff. My understanding is that both the battery and the vehicle, at least for Europe and Asia, will be built in Korea. So I don't know if they'll import those in the US, or maybe they'll even use their Georgia plant where they're starting to build the Kia EV9 for North America, in which case they could take advantage of the tax credit, and at which case the at-the-door price of this could be like 25 grand or less, which would be sweet.
Yeah, good to consider. I mean, at least they have Chat GPT AI running in the vehicle so that you can ask it to do things.
Yeah,
At least we
Mercedes
have
did that too, and now Kia. That's cool.
Pretty cool. We're seeing this, AI get into everything. Keep going and going and going. But okay, that's the EV3 as far as we know. Thank you, Max, for coming onto the podcast to talk to me about it and share what you know about the specs and your thoughts on this product from Kia. Again, would love to know what people think in the comments. Is this exactly what you wanted? Are they missing things? Does it matter? Let us know. We'll see you next time on the next episode of the Out of Spec podcast. Have a terrific rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.